Good evening to all manga fans. Well, how are you? Okay? Right? Well, welcome back to this special occasion at the Embassy of Japan in London. Are you ready for hearing the announcement of this year's winner? Right? Are you excited? I am excited to host the 16th Manga Jiman Competition award ceremony at our embassy tonight, and I'm very honored to say a few words to open this ceremony. Well, actually, she said this is not formal, but it's formal, but not formal. It's an enjoyable occasion. So what she said is right. You should enjoy. But it is very formal celebration. So the winner will be proud of your award. Okay? Well, the theme of this year's Manga Jiman competition is connect. You know, connect, right? This stems from the great progress we have made since last year. After getting over pandemic, we have finally resumed dining out with your friends, organizing various cultural events like this, and visiting each other even across borders. So you can now visit Japan. We have revived our connection in a host of different ways. This year, we have received a large number of entries, which reaches 1.2 million. Obviously, I'm joking. But still, it was among the highest in the history of the Manga Jiman competition. That is great news for this competition, but that imposed very pleasantly but difficult challenge on judges, including me. Well, the judges were really impressed with many entries. Some others seem connect very uniquely, while others are notable for highly skilled techniques employed in their creation. On just several pieces of paper, they successfully demonstrated the freedom of manga in expanding imagination, exploring the dreams, and more importantly, sharing the individual world with others. Ranking such precious jewels was a painfully tough task. But all judges enjoyed diving into your stories and the world. I trust you will all continue to enjoy both creating and reading manga. I'd like to express my gratitude to the judges for helping us, your professional comments, and always instructive and inspiring. I'm very proud of working with you all. I'd also like to thank the sponsors, generous sponsors, Japanese Gallery Kensington, Selva.com, PFU, RICOH UK, Japan Center, SelfMadeHero, Fanfare, Minamoto Kitchoan, Daikin, and Manga Originals for their support, which is great encouragement for all participants. Before the announcement of the awards, four wonderful judges, well, actually the one is now a bit late, so it might be three, of course, excluding me, will tell us the secret of how to create an excellent manga story. I believe these tips are helpful in your efforts to become great manga authors, and of course, to become winners of the Manga Jiman competition in the future. I ask you again, are you ready for enjoying the award ceremony? Enjoy, thank you.
And now, the time we were all waiting for, the announcement of the winners for this year's competition. Well, are you ready? So the first prize will be the Yonkoma Youth. And for the Yonkoma Youth, we have an exciting prize by Manga Original. And let's watch what it is.
Good evening everyone, I'm Dan Byron from mangaoriginals.co.uk. I sell a wide variety of manga art including manuscript pages, sketch pages, draft pages, double page spreads, vintage paintings, some modern paintings, shikishi autograph boards, and even some anime cells, and also a few anime background paintings. These are really hard to find. But tonight I'm here to present the prize for the under 14 Yonkoma category of the 2022 Manga Jiman Competition. And to try and fit the theme of Connect, I've chosen a page from Taiko no Tatsujin by Yasuhiro Makino. It was first published in Fami 2 comic from 2007 to 2009, and it's based off the massively popular arcade game series of the same name. So here's the page. It's super cute and meticulously drawn, and features this fantastic scene of a big taiko drum party. What better way to connect? So, congratulations to our lucky winner.
The winner is Cornelius Brandreth.
My name is Cornelius Brandreth, and the title of my entry is The Paper People. My parents introduced me to various animes, such as Beyblade and Pokemon, which I really enjoyed watching, and that eventually led me to start drawing. I was brainstorming on the theme Connect, and I sort of remembered some of the origami I did as a kid, and that sort of led me to think about the paper people idea. All the paper people are equal, and their hands are connected. They're all the same, and their hands are always connected. I found inking the hardest, as I didn't want to ruin my pencil copy, and so I decided to make 2 pencil copies, and I inked both, and I chose the one I liked the most. I'm actually a member of the Young Magicians Circle, which is a group in London of the best magicians. Think, draw.
Men on Right receiving the prize on Cornelius' behalf from Dan Byron. Next up is the Yonkoma 14+ category. The winner will receive an original Dragon Ball Z anime production cell and an original vintage Dragon Ball Z anime poster, courtesy of Selga.com. The winner of the Yonkoma 14+ category is Patrick Gordon.
My name is Patrick Gordon. The title of my entry is Beyond the A. When it comes to comics and manga, I guess it would probably be Dragon Ball Z. And I remember one of the first programs I saw when it was Dragon Ball Z early in the morning. Researching into 4 comas, I guess there's a structure of how they're built. Kisho Tenketsu, a 4-part structure essentially. I think another thing kind of inspired my idea with younger people and Zoomers talking about how they don't recognize what the floppy disk is. They recognize it as the save icon. They don't actually know that it's an actual floppy disk. Because that kind of sparked an idea, I guess. The most difficult thing was it's a combination actually of coming up with dialogue that's easily understandable and small enough to fit inside of a speech bubble, and actually fitting the speech bubble into the panel to make it small enough for you to actually see the art properly as well. It's a very delicate juggling act.
Our next prize is the Best Youth Prize. The prize is kindly sponsored by our long-term supporters, SelfMadeHero. The winner will win these great Shakespeare manga publications. The Manga Jiman Best Youth Prize goes to OTSU Yurika.
The character design of Jin came from myself in a dream when I was sleeping. I wish if I could be as handsome as him, although I recently lost 3 baby teeth at once. My favorite part of Japan is that there is my family. They always welcome me warmly and takes me lots of exciting places for me to learn about Japanese history and culture in more depth. I also love the second-hand bookstore near my grandparents' house, because somehow it always has the books that I was looking for. In addition, Animate is in Utopia. I hope Animate will one day be built at London. My 3 words to describe the process of manga making is sleep, flash and draw.
We will now be moving to the top 10. The 10th place prize is these amazing books kindly brought to us by Fanfare, our great supporters. In 10th place, we have Samuel Dewick.
My name is Samuel Dewick, and I wrote a comic called Can You Hear Me? This particular idea came to me when I was speaking to my father, and he was reminiscing about growing up in Brighton. And I mean, most people wouldn't notice, but the opening image is a vista of Brighton. And it kind of got me to thinking about what he would say if he was able to speak to his younger self now. And from there, I mean, the story just kind of followed. I sort of embellished on that, imagined, what kind of advice he would give his younger self as he was trying to give me at that specific moment, but if he could do it personally to himself. And that's where the idea came from. The other thing I quite like about the comic is this was a little bit unintentional until around about halfway through, where I realized that it was happening. But the seasons kind of in each sort of stage of the comic are in reverse. So as if, the story only really makes sense when you kind of look at it in reverse. You read it from back to front.
For 9th place, another great prize from Fanfare. And in 9th, we have Hanna Gwynn.
Hi, I'm Hanna Gwynn, and my entry to the Manga Jiman competition this year was called Interplanetary. I've been trying to figure out what draws me to the characters within the stories and their emotional inner worlds, and trying to unpick that so that then I can apply it to my own work. It's an ongoing project. The story, it came from a lot of different things. One was, I remember reading somebody talking about that whenever they miss somebody, they would look up at the moon and then remember that they would also be looking up at the moon as well and feel connected that way. It also comes from those feelings that you can get when you talk to somebody that you really like, and even though you're far away, just being able to talk to them and share the moments with them, or an event or something even simple as watching TV together from different locations, can feel quite connected. But one thing I found difficult was that my own circumstances changed, and the person that was an inspiration for the story I don't talk to anymore. So that helped me gain a lot of perspective on the story, and I found that actually surprisingly useful to be able to suddenly see it in a different light.
Moving on to the 8th place. This year's 8th place will also receive the beautiful books by Fanfare. In 8, we have Yue Guan.
My name is Yue Guan. I'm grateful to be shortlisted with my entry, looking for a missing piece. I work in healthcare as a junior doctor. The pandemic has really made me reflect on what it means to have a positive sense of connection. And it seems that everyone has their own take on this kind of idea too. So I just thought, might as well start exploring ideas and see where these ideas will take me. I wanted to explore the idea that we're all constantly interacting with each other or something, thus enriching this complex web of interconnection. However, our perceptions of our connections are not always clear, and it can greatly influence our sense of self as well. So my story effectively follows the adventure of our shy but brave main character, who's eventually made this realization and has learned how she can start feeling connected and then eventually finding her own sense of belonging. So back in school, my career aspiration was to become both a nerdy scientist and a comic artist. I'd say it's still the dream combo to this day. I'm currently working in basically cancer diagnostics as a pathologist in training, which I think is pretty close enough being a nerdy scientist. So I guess overall I'm still on track.
Seventh wins gift vouchers from the Japan Center. In 7th place, we have Agatha Roud.
My name is Agatha Roud, and I wrote GLHF. So I've been reading comics since I'm a kid. It's very popular in France, especially manga. I actually was already writing comics with friends when I was 8. I was really into it. For a while, I wanted to be a comic artist, but then later on, I changed my mind. But yeah, no, I started drawing stories, and the last one I wrote, I was about 13 years old, and then after that, I drew a bit less, and I found other hobbies. But yeah, when I was a kid, I used to draw a lot, and I still have probably 10 books that I wrote when I was a kid. Yeah, I wanted to make a story that was like a bit like a slice of life, like not with like a deep meaning to it, but more something that feels real. I really like seinen mangas, so I wanted to keep this feeling in it. I work in the film industry, so I think film is probably like my biggest inspiration of all. Seeing different kind of art, I'm very lucky to have a lot of people that do art around me, and they're probably the biggest influence on me. I actually wrote it when I had COVID because I was off work, so it was good to see that these 2 weeks didn't go to waste.
On to the 6th. The 6th place winner will receive sweets from Minamoto Kitchoan and an air purifier by our sponsor at Daikin. In the 6th place, we have Kyle Charlton.
I'm Kyle Charlton, and my entry is called Family. So I actually had the idea for my entry on holiday near the sea. I was looking out one day, and I was sort of like daydreaming about the fish sort of blowing underneath it, and had this like idea of like a magical visual where they're all flowing everywhere, and it's really cool. Yeah, I had the idea for the stars part of my entry as well, the same night, like connecting the stars. And the imagery of tethering was an idea that I've had knocking around for a while, where sometimes you can feel like you're sort of floating off, and you need people around you to bring you back down to earth. Primary theme of Connect was the way that the two characters reconnect after their mum's passing. I think that sort of family connection is really important, and a lot of us obviously miss that over lockdowns and things, so I think it's still fresh in the mind.
Next up, 5th place. This person will also receive sweets from Minamoto Kitchoan and an air purifier from Daikin. In 5th place, Joshua Sims.
Hello, my name is Joshua Sims, and the title of my entry is Abella. I read a lot of kind of like 20th century sort of novels and Victorian era, such stuff like H.G. Wells's work and the original Dracula, Bram Stoker and stuff. They really inspire the kind of mood and setting I go for with my works. Well, I was thinking about the idea of Connect, which was the main theme, and the first thing I thought of were like connecting dots and patterns and finding things that match and correlate. And so I thought about, well, maybe someone would see the same name everywhere. And that's where the idea mainly came from, the name of Abella being everywhere where this man looked. But surprisingly, it took a lot of work to find the name. I think that was the bit that took the longest, to think of the name of the ghost, because I needed it to be very memorable and to ring a bell. In the story, there's a man called Lucien who moves into a very isolated house, and it's the middle of the winter, and he's a very lonely guy. And he starts to piece together that there's a ghost that really wants to meet him, and he assumes that the ghost is really mean and kind of, out to haunt him. But actually the ghost is also just really lonely because they've been trapped there for so long. And so they kind of connect, as the theme suggests, like through their mutual kind of loneliness, sharing the same house, but centuries apart.
Unfortunately, he is absent today, but we will certainly send him his prizes. Moving on to the 4th place. The 4th place will get Japanese sweets from Minamoto Kitchoan and an air purifier by our sponsors at Daikin. In 4th place, we have Andrew Attwell.
My name is Andrew Attwell. My entry for Jiman this year is That Mobile Life. I still have 2 comics that I drew aged 5 or 6, and they are as daft and absurd as the stuff that I draw now, actually. I discovered manga and anime in my teens, and that started to give me that Eastern influence in my work. I like to think I take good care of my phone, but a number of years back I sort of just tossed it onto my bed, where it landed neatly, slowly slid off the edge, and then fell on the floor face down, cracking the screen. And that got me thinking about how we treat our devices, and with how much or how little care. And that moment right there, that was the seed for this comic. I had to draw a lot of mobile phones for this comic, and making sure that they were sort of expressive and not too stiff, giving some life and humor and expression to something quite boxy. That was a bit of a challenge. When I think of connection, I think of the way we connect with technology these days, and how perhaps that connection is not quite as strong or not quite the same as the connections we make in person.
The 3rd place will receive a 360-degree camera from RICOH UK. Let's have a look.
Work. It's something you do. And it used to be somewhere you went every day. For some, it still is. But for many, there's something different about work. It's changing. But with changes come challenges. Limitations in access to colleagues and documents. Office setups built to fit an old reality. Disrupted workflows. Not enough room for new ideas. Digital security concerns. Poor cloud solutions. Failing to meet new customer demands. The list goes on. But it doesn't have to. At RICOH, we are in the business of leading change. Our vision is to create a seamless digital workspace experience. But to achieve this, you need a clear direction. One that empowers people and enables employee engagement to realize innovation, drive sustainability, and protect valuable business assets. And it all starts with adding the right value. Imagine always having seamless access to the technology and information you need, no matter where or how you're working. And at the same time, not having to think about security threats because data and information are effectively guarded. Imagine automating manual, repetitive processes to free up time, boosting productivity and creativity. Securely powered by a cloud solution that is flexible, energy efficient, and easy to access. And imagine how customized digital tools can help you deliver first-class customer service. We have a strong legacy of pioneering new and better ways of working, from printing solutions to our broad portfolio of digital services, taking the lead on positive change that unleashes human potential through the power and opportunity of technology, leading fulfillment, leading human potential, leading change at work.
In 3rd place, we have Alex Brennan-Dent.
I'm Alex Brennan-Dent, and my entry is Signal. Because I tend to be so busy with work, I made it in maybe 10 days. But even so, I think I went through like 3 or 4 different variations of like the scenery and sort of what the characters could look like before settling on these ones. And it was kind of a process of figuring out what the characters would look like as I was roughing out the pages and being like, oh, what situation are these characters in, and what visual for each character would kind of reflect where they're at. And I don't know, that's kind of a fun part of the manga making process that I always tend to get very wrapped up in. Some of my nearest and dearest people in my life live far away, but they've been there for me through some really hard times regardless. So I wanted to convey at least some of the feelings that can come from your loved ones being there for you, even when they can't be there for you, so to speak. By pushing one of the many ways that people can stay connected nowadays to a bit of an extreme, but also by trying to depict a connection between characters that anybody reading it could hopefully connect with as well. Involved, but invigorating.
Two to go. Second place will get an exciting prize by PFU Ltd. Let's have a look.
As ways of working become increasingly flexible, we've created a scanner that fits perfectly into your life. Introducing the ScanSnap iX1300, the small scanner with a big impact. Thanks to its ultra-compact size and minimal operational footprint, the iX1300 is the practical, personal desktop scanner that fits on any desk. Its U-turn feed path scans up to 20 sheets without the need to extend any trays, while the return path allows you to instantly scan individual items up to 2mm thick without even opening the cover. Built-in Wi-Fi means instant connectivity. In fact, you don't have to have a PC. With the iX1300, you can scan directly to cloud, mobile or folder locations and store in a variety of formats, searchable PDF, JPEG, or even editable Word, Excel or PowerPoint, whatever works for you. And all of this at impressive speeds. The iX1300 is ready to scan in just 2.9 seconds and at a swift 30 double-sided pages per minute. Best of all, you don't need to know IT, just how to press a button. Simple setup, one-touch scanning and ScanSnap Home software keep things easy, helping you quickly convert the papers you have into the files you need. See how the iX1300 can fit into your life wherever it takes you. The ScanSnap iX1300. Small scanner, big impact.
Second place, Ewan Gallagher.
My name is Ewan Gallagher, and I'm the developer for the title Orcs. My dream goal is to be a manga artist. That is the one thing that I want to do for the rest of my life. After evaluating the previous winners and their stories, I came to a conclusion on how I should portray connection between a story of characters. With most of the younger generation today residing in their own personal bubbles, a desire for validation and the real fear of rejection simply based on their interests, the story only seemed to grow stronger as it was being made. Look, the story itself is a recreation of Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, where a hero must overcome trials and tribulations in order to gather an elixir that returns to normal but changes the story in some ways. So I made this character called Jude, and she is disconnected from her quote-unquote normal family and hesitates to open up. So Jude is the hero in this story. She is overcoming her fears of rejection from her family that she knows almost nothing about, basically. So it's a journey to reconnect with her family, with her own personal ideologies and fears bringing her down.
The winner of the 16th Manga Jiman competition is Kevin Lee.
Well, I joined this competition because of my good friend Dan Bryan, and 2 weeks before that, I broke up with a girl. this story is kind of my self-reflection on what's going on there. I couldn't figure out why. So it's kind of my own meditation. The theme is connect. And then I figured, in Buddhism and Hinduism, they kind of conclude all human suffering into attachment. Until you find that happiness and joy within yourself, then people try to solve the problem by fulfilling external circumstances. So that's why it's very hard to find connection as a human being, to try to know, oh, am I alone? But of course, the Buddha is constantly saying, no, you're never alone. You're always connected. There's no way you're not connected. Like in some of the panels, because I grew up doing oil paintings until I left Hong Kong when I was 17. I was training to be an oil painter, so I like to draw the detailed things like the shadings, the hand, how they pose, and how the composition of the panel can be very impactful. But what I find the most enjoyable is actually, in my manga, there's a few panels where the lines are very simple, where the human expression is simply just a few lines. And I think this is the charm of manga. Like you can express the emotion in such a joyful, funny way, but you get it. For some reason, human cognitive is able to understand a smiley face, although a smiley face has no similarity to any human face on earth ever. So I think I like to play around with that. It's a small panel, the face can be like very abstract, but somehow you get it. I like to play around things like this, so that would be like small panel but funny. I want people to be enjoying it.
Kevin wins amazing prizes which were personally chosen for him by the generous sponsors at the Japanese Gallery Kensington. His prizes are Original Blackjack Anime Production Cell with a sketch and Original Metropolis Anime Production Cell. We are on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. Moreover, the Manga Jiman exhibition will be on display from the beginning of April, so please come and visit us at the embassy. We will share the details of the exhibition later on our social media accounts. Lastly, thank you for joining us tonight. Congratulations to all the winners and well done.